Today we're just going to check out Zoho's SalesIQ and the Zoho Bot, just to identify how we can actually do more external facing things and enable our customers or whoever we're developing for to be able to marry those departments together and kind of alleviate some of the things we see online when it comes to chatting and support and just like general questions. So things we can do with the chatbot are recognize when people are online on our website. So in the bottom right corner, we have bury the bot. It'll go ahead and ask me what I need assistance with today. And again, most of her questions aren't sales related, but more support related. So we have this slide here that'll be able to suggest what the next thing in the conversation should be. So of course, I need help with my order. So this chatbot will pop up, and right now, it'll be able to assist me with some questions. Now it's going to go ahead and ask me what my reference number is. And at this point in the process, it's going to go ahead and run an API directly to our accounting suite to understand exactly what the order may be. So I'll go ahead and put in an order that we already have. And because she cares about her customer's privacy, it's going to go ahead and pull that order information. It's going to look at the email on that order, and it's going to go ahead and send me a code to my email so I can verify that I am who I say I am. So at this point, like I mentioned, her situation is always a status or something was wrong. So whenever a product gets damaged in shipment, she always has to make a ticket and follow up and do a bunch of stuff. So I'll go ahead and click that the shipment was damaged. And again, because we've already captured the entire order from her accounting platform, we can actually go ahead and see exactly when it was delivered, who delivered it, and let her know that we're talking about the same order. So of course I want to go ahead and get that resolved. And at this point, since we're going to be actually making a ticket in a different platform, we're going to actually need to capture some information to understand how to address it. So we can say FedEx threw it over the fence. It turns out I have a 50-foot fence, and it landed on concrete. And since everything's damaged, we'll go ahead and create that ticket. So I'll say, yeah, I want to go ahead and take care of that. And again, because we don't want to show all the information in plain text, we'll go ahead and asterisk out and use the last couple characters of an email address, and I'll go ahead and confirm. So also because she cares about customer service, and they're a small business, mom and pop shop, they want to schedule a follow-up call, maybe get some more information to be able to make sure that the order that they are going to make again will be exactly what they need. So I'll go ahead and say, yeah, I want to. And we have another thing that we've got, a little widget that'll be able to have me select morning, evening, or the afternoon. And I'll go ahead and select the afternoon. And this is in control of Allie because she doesn't have a calendar and she's not sitting there 9 to 5. She's also making the product. So she needs a general area of when to call. So the afternoon, we schedule the call, we've created a ticket, and we've pulled in information from the accounting platform. So now that we've seen what a bot can do and how it can help one individual manage their business, we're going to go ahead and check out the concepts about the SalesIQ chatbot and how we got to that point. So the online customer journey is a pretty important thing that we've got, especially for a lot of businesses these days. And that's how that person actually ended up being able to contact or chat with this business. And just some statistics. Right now, chatbots are growing rapidly. And just our data, we'll have more than 1 million chats. This is as of August 2019 every month. Tons of conversations are occurring. So this is definitely something that we can utilize for small or large businesses in a very easy way into their already existing platforms. So the chatbot actually comes in here during the conversion and loyalty section for sales and support, because typically you'll drive that customer into your website or the prospect, you'll convert them to a customer, but then you want to have that one-on-one interaction after they've actually been converted, and you want to go ahead and take care of that relationship moving forward. Now, we've got a few barriers that occur that are what make a chatbot extremely useful. The number one barrier to live chat adoption. If you want to have somebody online all the time, you don't want to hire 3 people to do 3 shifts all day, every day. And a lot of companies don't want to just have that sitting there. So a bot's a really good replacement for that one-on-one, the easy interaction, and taking down notes. What's the number 2 barrier to live chat adoption? The current employees don't have enough time. Allie's busy. They already have a workforce. But again, they're not going to sit there and take time out of their day every day to go sit at a laptop and just have that window open, waiting for people to come on their website. So Again, a really good solution to this is the SalesIQ Zoho Bot. So when we talk about a chatbot from a very high level, we'll talk about how somebody interacts, and that's the chat interface. Whether it's through a mobile application, whether it's through an online web page, we're able to see visually, again, how they interact with that bot. You have the bot framework. So here's a couple different bot frameworks that serve one function, and that's to interact with the customer. And then we also have a couple other things on the end of the customer database. That way, when that person talks to you, it can be contextual. That way, if you have a history with that person online, that it can pull that information and maybe predict what they need and what they're about to ask you. So when we use the Zoho Chat Bot, we give you all three of those things built in. So we've got our web chat, we have our mobile SDKs. So you're able to build something very quickly. You're also able to build it very easily because you don't have to do it from the ground up. We also have the executors, which are just easy ways to write commands. So like we saw before, when I say that something's damaged, it'll go and recognize, I want to go ahead and start making a ticket for that exact issue. And then we have the customer database with the visitor insights. So this is an awesome feature to have with the Zoho chatbot because you're able to track when they come back to the website, when they leave, if they're to chat and then come back for a second chat, they'll have chat history. So we've already got something capturing all the information and all the historical conversations we've had with that person. Beyond that, even though we have a lot built in, we do have a few integrations, actually quite a few integrations that can augment that. So if you're working with a customer or a client that doesn't want to switch from their existing CRM, that doesn't want to switch from their marketing campaign platform or their ticketing platform, we do have built-in integrations. Beyond that, we will see a couple API calls from the Zoho SalesIQ chatbot. Beyond that, like I mentioned, we're going to be looking at a SalesIQ script. If you don't want to use a SalesIQ script, which is, again, very easy to code, we actually have built-in connectors. That way you can utilize these for natural language flow. If you don't want to have to go from the ground up and kind of make a really niche bot, you can utilize these and over time it'll get better. Same thing with our Zia skills. Over time, everything will get better. So now we're going to talk about the command-based conversational bot that we just saw. So we have the trigger handler. I always describe the trigger handler as the quiet kid in the classroom that knows everything but never wants to answer. And the teacher always has to call on them to get something out of it when everybody else in the class gets it wrong. Now, if that doesn't relate to you, it's also, I always describe it as information desk at the airport because I use that all the time. And I know they know a lot more than where baggage claim is. But when I go up and ask them, they'll tell me exactly what it is. And I use that comparison because it's always something that knows a lot, that's ready to direct a conversation, but it's waiting on somebody to let them know, hey, what do we need to talk about? And now we have our message handler. And in this example, if I go to the airport, I ask the person at the information desk, where's baggage claim? I can't find my stuff. Then I'm obviously going to go up to go hang out at baggage claim. And while I'm there, I may be frustrated because I'm an idiot and couldn't find it and talk to somebody right beside me. So we're going to have a conversation, but it's not probably going to be anything meaningful. It's going to be a one-off, why am I here? How's the weather? And things like that. So the message handler will be reactive in a sense that you can ask it something, it'll give you something back. But we're not going to take action on any of these things. So like it says on the slide, it just analyzes my message and will respond accordingly. Now, the context handler goes beyond just having that conversation, the to and fro with the stranger at the airport. The context handler takes it one step further. And I always compare this to if you're in a meeting with your colleagues. The context handler is the person who's taking notes on the meeting agenda because it recognizes all these different conversations we're having over time. It'll take in all the attributes that that meeting contains. And then at the end of it, it'll know, all right, what action items do we need to perform for the organization? So the context handler, in a sense, will be something that, again, if I've talked to a bot a dozen times on a website, it'll recognize what I've said in the past. It'll know what we need to do next. And in the example we saw, it knows something's broken. I know it knows how it's broken, but it goes ahead and asks me, do you want to create a ticket? So it'll take all the historical information, including my order information, and that bot will go ahead and make a ticket, and that's through the context handler, because we've been gathering a lot of information the entire time. Now, the failure handler is me. I am a failure handler. But we'll go ahead and I always describe it as the thing that is there when an agent can't be. So when you want to transfer from a bot to an agent, and an agent isn't online or a user isn't available, the failure handler will take that response and recognize that won't work. So how do we handle it when something doesn't work? So it'll be, okay, they're not there. It's 1 in the morning and Allie's asleep. So I'll go ahead and take a message and we'll figure it out tomorrow. Beyond that, in a situation, if your bot can't create a ticket and you receive a response and the response is like, we've already got a ticket for this. Do you want to go ahead and update it? The failure handler can take that information and go, hey, we can't do this right now. We'll go ahead and figure it out later. So typically what people do, or an easy way to see it, is lay out exactly what's happening here. How we have someone visiting the website like we saw on Edge Dynamics. I went ahead and I was on the website for 6 seconds, so it wanted to ask me what I needed. So then we have the trigger handler. So the trigger handler recognized, oh, something is there. I went ahead and said I needed help with my order. So then all that stuff gets put in the context handler here in the cylinder on the right, and the context handler executes. Now, if I would have said something different and the trigger handler couldn't recognize what I was doing, so if I was bored and just needed someone to talk to, and I was talking to Barry the bot, I would just say, hello, how are you? And it may just go to the message handler and say, I'm doing well, I hope you are as well. And that's not really going to take anything into context. It's just something that we go through in that flow, and it'll wait until you say something and it recognizes something that you need, and it'll come back to the context handler. So that's kind of the flow we've got here between all the different things we just discussed. So again, the bot's used to engage folks on a website. Through that process flow, we're able to gather lots of information, and then we can perform those functions. So next, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the example code, the actions that were taken, and then we'll kind of see a few more examples because I only gave 4 in that one, but there's tons of different things we can do and utilize within the chatbot. So invoking the API. When I gave the order number, I went ahead and said, hey, this is my order number. Let's go ahead and confirm that. So you'll notice in the code, we have order number equals answers.get. So what that does is find the variable name and then get the text within that variable. So I'll go ahead and get the order number. And then we have the Invoke URL function. So within our deluge, we can invoke a URL, and I actually have it right here. It's the Zoho books. It's our accounting suite. And it'll go ahead and look for that sales order, and it'll just go ahead and get all the information about the sales order. So you notice our type here is called get. When you use the invoke URL, you can also utilize post, put, and delete. So if you have a situation, or you would like to add a feature of like, hey, I just made an order, can I cancel it? You can actually run a delete function out of the invoke URL to your accounting suite as well. Or cancel or whatever we need to do there if you need to update a status of the order. You want to keep the order in your system. It is RESTful, and it does use JSON, so it's very flexible, and you can use it with a lot of cloud applications. The second thing we did was verifying the identity of the individual. So it sent me a code to my email. So the question part, that's just the text. You notice the reply says we sent a code to the email, please put it in proceed. I run functions to find a random subset of numbers from the current time, and then I just make it to a string. Then we have our send email function down here at the bottom. And it'll send to the email that was on the sales order. It'll just be subject verification code, and then it'll go ahead and say, here's your code. So we can also send emails directly from this chatbot. And it's not a situation where we're going to send the transcript of the chatbot. We can actually send functional emails directly to the customer during our conversation. So here's just another example of a record being created. When you're using other Zoho products, you can use Deluge to trigger certain functions to create records. So I declare a map here. I have my description equal answers.get damage description. I get the text. And so then I have the subject, which is just the order number, and I place damage shipment on every ticket that's created. So if we have a ticket, it'll put the sales order number and then damage shipment, and then it puts in that user's email when we create the ticket. And then it's just those Zoho desk or zoho.desk.create, the org ID, the module, and then that map we just created, and that'll create a ticket. So Deluge really enables you to not have to do everything from the ground up, especially from Zoho to Zoho. And it's just a really quick, really easy way to drag and drop, and we'll look at the interface soon, drag and drop something in and say, here's what I want to happen. You don't have to code PHP or Python or any of that stuff to go to and from our platforms. And then we have our slider sliding into her schedule. So the slider is a function of a card. And because it's, again, built in, we have a lot of pre-built features within the chatbot here. All we have to do is declare the type as slider, and then we'll declare the value. So I had morning, afternoon, and I had evening. So that's all I have to do to make that entire widget, that slider widget. And then given the question, we have the created ticket. It'll say, Ali is the agent assigned to your ticket, because when we make that ticket from the previous function, we know who the agent is that'll take care of it. Therefore, we can now schedule a call with that same agent if the customer prefers. And one question that I had back in Zoholics in April was, what is the comma for between these two statements? So whenever that bot has those 3 dots and it's chatting you, that comma dictates in the sentence, use the bubbles, and send another message. So if you run into a scenario where, like I had, we need to send 3 messages, you utilize the comma as a break within the platform to indicate that it needs to be 3 separate. If I take that comma out, it'd just be one big paragraph and wouldn't be very good to look at. We use the skippable variable at the very end to understand if they don't want to call, they can skip the command and it'll proceed through our context handler. But all we have to do to put that slider into the selection after the text is just do input slider. So we only have like 2 lines of code to make a selection to schedule a phone call with an individual. So it's really easy to use there. So we're going to talk about a few more input cards because we didn't get to talk about that many in that example. But we also have date time slots. So this entire card right here, where it gives you the options to schedule an actual time, that's all you have to do over here on the left. So we have our type. So instead of saying a slider, we'll just say date with some time slots. We have our label, which is select a time. We go ahead and put in a date. And then we go ahead and put in, or we have the slots, so we put in our date, and then we put in the time for that date. These are hard-coded statements, but if you have a situation where you're scheduling on somebody's calendar, again, you can run that get URL from the invoke URL, look at someone's Google Calendar, CRM calendar, whichever calendar application we've got in the cloud, and see, oh, here's their availability. You declare those availability as variables, and we'll just stick them in instead of those times, which we'll see here shortly how to do that. And then we have the feedback and rating. So again, we have this card. It's already built into the platform. If you want to add it, all you have to do is just type happiness rating with 3 levels. That's it. So you're able to use all these cards that are pre-built to create a really engaging chatbot that allows you to make it seem like you're doing a lot, but in reality, it's 2 lines of code. Super awesome. And then the forward part. So again, when we have a situation where a chatbot can't figure it out or we run into a hiccup, we need to actually give it to a different individual. So this is not necessarily for Ali. This may be for a situation where you do have tons of agents online. So if you do have quite a few agents online and they are available, we have the forwarding to a specific agent. So action forward, operator, Ali at Edge Dynamics, and it'll go ahead and connect it to an agent. So that automatically transfers the entire conversation from the bot to Ali, so she can take it from there. Now, if you have a situation where you don't have the small business mom and pop shop, and you do have it where there's a team of 10 or 15 in a department, you can just forward to a specific department using the exact same thing. Action forward, I'm forwarding you to a department and using a department ID. And then for this example, it's Zoho Desk. It's a department ID. So it's very easy to go ahead and have a bunch of different little commands within our chatbot to get up and running. Now, beyond the cards, we have our widgets. So if you have a situation, typically if it's more sales oriented, let's say they're on a website, they're on Ali's website, they're looking at custom powder coated maybe mugs or what do they call them, tumblers. You can actually have that pop up and provide external links with image and text. So if on the website they have their own slideshow, it has a bunch of images of their newest designs, and someone's on a page for that tumbler, you can actually go ahead and have the chatbot go, hey, check out our newest designs. And this one, it's a villa. So when I say I want a villa, it'll go ahead and send me a link from a database with all our properties that we have available, and it'll go ahead and tell me exactly what it's about. And in the code, it's pretty straightforward. We have our text, what image we want to send, the links we want to have it go to. That way, no matter what I click in that window, it'll take me to that specific link in the chat. And beyond that, here's just a few more examples of what we got. So we're able to have, like I mentioned, if there's a product in the upper left corner, it'll go ahead and tell you maybe there's a promotion during that time and pull it up. If you want to go all out and go ahead have a full calendar built into your chatbot, you can see that in the bottom left corner. And again, all these things are super easy to use. And we'll check out the interface and how to drag and drop them in within the platform. So to add it on the website, we'll just go to settings. At the top, we have our Zoho bot. When you're about to add a bot, it'll ask you here, and you have your ability to choose a website here. So I already have one. And then here's where you can choose your visitor types. So maybe in a situation, to take it one step further, Ali typically wants to talk to folks that are looking for support. So we can go ahead and say the visitor type, scratch that, and we can say, where is it? Contains that edge, oh, can't spell today, dynamic.zohosites.com/contact. So now Barrow will only show up when they go to that contact us page for 6 seconds. And if we scroll down, here's where we have those platform options to pick. Do we want to do a SalesIQ script? Do we want to do Zia skills? Do we want to do Dialogflow, webhooks, or Watson Assistant? So that's how you put that on the page. If you don't have the direct integration with the Zoho sites, which is what I just did, you'll want to go up here to websites. And I've got my website name. And we have our live chat widget. And you should be able to get the live chat code here. So you can copy and paste this into any website, and that'll automatically start functioning. Now to talk about how the logic works, so we have Barry here. I'll go ahead and open Barry up. We already made. And we'll click configure. So like I mentioned, Barry actually recognizes the fact, like here we have if it contains ignored case no, and it contains ignored case sales. It's going to go ahead and just ask what they can assist with. So I have Barry set up to ignore all sales and only help if they've already bought. So that's what I go through. And then if we scroll down, and if we have a situation where an individual says help and order, then I'll be asking you a few questions to assist you with an order, and it kicks off that situation where we go through the context handler. And also, it's just good to note that when we do this, again, we suggest what needs to happen. That way, you can kind of be in control of the conversation. So that's where we have the response.put function. And that's where we saw those two little buttons that I could have pressed for I'm okay, thanks, I need help with my order. So again, if you can have it so you will have suggestions and they can click it. But if I were also to type the words help and order, it would recognize that as well. But I don't have to. If I'm a customer of hers, it'll just give me that suggestion so I can click, I need help with my order. So I click that, and here we've got the bot going. So now that the trigger handler recognized that something needs to be in the context handler, we'll go down here and hit the context handler. So it'll ask me what the order number is, and here's where we saw that text. All right, get my order number, run it through the books URL, and go through that. If we have to go through another endpoint, all we have to do here on the left, actually we don't even have to do on the left, we could just say third party, oh, clicked the wrong thing there. Third party equals invoke URL, and then we just rinse and repeat. So I just do the bracket. I call my endpoint, and we just go through that method. I will go ahead and do, I don't want to repeat that, but what will happen is the response. So if I do the get order, and we'll just take a look at how it functions when we need to parse that data, and I'll reload this. Help with my order. They'll go ahead and ask me for my order. 10/05/2019. So what we have down here at the bottom of my screen is that response. So when you run that invoke URL, again, you get all the order information in JSON format, including the customer name, email, delivery date, all that jazz from our Zoho Books application. But the same will go for any of the other cloud applications we've got. So if you have a situation where a customer doesn't want to move, you can use that invoke URL in other ways. But again, like as we go down, you'll notice we've got I have a lot of else and if statements. Like that's where you just need to map out that conversation logic and decide how you want to handle the conversation. When we utilize this type of logic, like at a situation where we have our suggestions, or if I do want to schedule a situation with a doctor, we'll have that entire logic set up. And then on the left side here, we do have all of our cards. And I can go ahead and do, maybe I want to go ahead and do the date and time slots. And you just drag it and drop it in. And we could just call this scheduled time with Ali. And call it scheduler. Schedule now. How about that? This is where you just throw in the date. So if it's October 5th, and then time 1, we can utilize our times. I think it was like 12 a.m. and things like that. But let's go ahead and say we only want to schedule time maybe 48 hours in advance. So we can actually just go ahead and do new time and just do the current, there it is, current date and time. And just do plus 48 or dot add hours. Add hour and do 48 hours. So just like that, that new time variable, I can say we're only available within 48 hours. And then what I can do is just continuously add 3 more, like 1 hour plus 2 hours plus 3 hours to get 3 different time slots an hour apart. So it's super simple to use, and that widget will actually show up like we saw in the examples with the calendar, with those 5 different time slots. But it's, again, really easy and flexible to be able to do that. So like I mentioned before, in our templates up here in the top, choose from templates, you can check it out. We actually have an example where you gather time from a Google Calendar and then modify those time slots for 48 hours in advance. So we've got quite a few examples in there. But like I mentioned on the left side of the screen, like when I talked about having the star rating, the happiness, the single select, all that jazz, all the ranges, all you do is drag and drop it in. We've got the chatbot in a situation like that, and creating it only took me about 4 hours to go ahead and call on all that stuff. And we're able to utilize this and modify it. That way, Ali no longer has to stay up all night or deal with emails that come in and organize them for helping out. She can automatically have it create a desk ticket. The person can automatically know their order status. She doesn't have to reply to those emails anymore. So it takes a lot of time out of her just day-to-day responding to customers.